Hello, everyone. My name is Kripa. I'm a dietitian with UF Jacksonville with Employee Wellness Program. Today, we'll be talking about food safety, which is the fourth topic in the Nourish Life program. Thank you, everyone, for joining. So we'll go ahead and get started. So the threats to food safety. So there's three typical types of hazards that can make our food unsafe. So there's biological hazards, chemical, and physical hazards. So biological hazards are tiny forms of life that one can't see, taste, or smell. Yes, you named it. These include bacteria, viruses, parasites, and fungi. Some of these cause illnesses, and they are called pathogens. Chemical hazards are chemicals in your household that contaminate food. These include cleaners, sanitizers, and machine lubricants and polishes. And then physical hazards include glass, bones, fruit pits, metal shavings, staple, dirt, bandages, and even jewelry. So how do us people make food unsafe, right? So the first one would be the biggest cause to foodborne illness is poor personal hygiene. So people who don't wash their hands properly or often enough are the biggest risk for food safety. Time temperature abuse. So letting food stay too long at temperatures that are good for pathogen growth, and especially like the temperature danger zone. Food is in the temperature danger zone when its temperature falls between 40 and 140 degrees Fahrenheit. Cross-contamination occurs when pathogens are transferred from one surface or food to another, and it's usually carried by utensils, our hands, and other foods. And then poor cleaning and sanitation. When equipment, utensils, and surfaces are not being cleaned and sanitized, food can easily become contaminated. So there's 4 simple steps to food safety. It's clean, separate, cook, and chill. So did you know an estimated of 1 in 6 Americans will get sick from food poisoning this year alone? Food poisoning not only sends over 128,000 Americans to the hospital every year, it can also cause long-term health problems. So you can keep you and your family safe from food poisoning at home by following these 4 simple steps. So cleaning is making sure we wash our hands and surfaces frequently, separating our raw meats from other ready-to-eat foods, cooking our food to the right temperature, and making sure we refrigerate our food properly to making sure they're cooled in a proper temperature. So washing hands. Hands can transfer pathogens to food. So therefore, hand washing is a crucial step in avoiding food contaminations. We should all be a pro at washing our hands now, especially like as the pandemic. So we have to wash our hands for about 20 seconds, which is singing the happy birthday song about 2 times. So the steps of washing hands is making sure we wash our hands and arms, running it under warm water, usually as hot as you can tolerate. Apply soap, making sure you have enough to build a good lather, scrubbing your hands and arms vigorously, and scrubbing them for at least 10 to 15 seconds, and making sure we get everything like underneath our fingernails and between our fingers. Rinse thoroughly under warm water, and then drying your hands and making sure we don't use our apron, and try to use a single paper towel or a hand dryer. Most of us don't have hand dryers at home, but a single paper towel instead of like dish towels and things like that, which can harbor bacteria. And then try not to use like hand sanitizers instead of hand washing. If you do use hand sanitizers, you should use them after washing your hands and make sure they dry all the way before touching any food or equipment. Cleaning. Germs can make you sick and can survive on many places around your kitchen, including foods, hands, utensils, cutting boards, and even countertops. All surfaces must be cleaned and rinsed. Any surface that touches food must be cleaned, including like knives, cookware, cutting boards. Washing or cutting boards, dishes, utensils, and countertops with hot soapy water, especially if they've had any raw meat, poultry, seafood, or eggs on them. Washing our dishcloths as often as possible in hot cycles, and never storing chemicals near food. So the next step is cross-contamination. So preventing cross-contamination usually happens starting at the grocery store. So when you go grocery shopping, try to separate your raw meats, poultry, seafood, and eggs from other packaged foods as well. And when you are checking out, make sure you put them in different bags as well. Like your meats go all in one bag, and then your non-meat items should go in another bag, like fresh produce. And then using one cutting board for fresh produce, and then the other cutting board that won't be cooked before they're eaten. And then other for raw meats, poultry, seafood, and eggs. And then replace them as often as possible, especially so we can make sure there's no bacteria that harbors on them. And then even using separate plates and utensils for cooked and raw meats. So don't use the same plate that was used for raw meats for the cooked meats. And then storing it properly in the refrigerator. So you always want to make sure we wrap it or cover it. And at home, when we want to place like the raw meats, poultry, seafoods in a sealed, leak-proof plastic bags. And if we're not going to eat them right away, it's best to freeze them, right, as soon as possible. And then in the refrigerator, you want to keep the eggs in their original cartons and store them in the main compartment, not in the door. And all ready-to-eat foods should be stored above the meats that are raw. And stored like the cups and the glasses upside down, and making sure our utensils are also with the handles up. So most food allergens, right? So most food allergens consist of milk, dairy products, wheat, eggs, soy, fish, and peanuts or tree nuts. So when we're handling like any of our family members or friends that are coming over for dinner may have any food allergies, you do want to be very extra careful. So making sure you rinse, sanitize everything like your hands, cookware, utensils, equipment before preparing food for someone that has allergies. And then first in, first out. So when we're storing food, we definitely want to check the expiration date and storing it in a first in, first out method. So store items that will expire first in front of those that will expire later, and using the food in the front to prevent food waste in general. So this could be like in your pantry, your refrigerator, your freezer, anything like that, or even try to put dates on them, like if it's in the refrigerator or freezer that you're unsure of, like the day you bought it, to make it a little bit easier for you. So now we will move on to cooking. So proper ways to thaw food. So you never want to thaw food at room temperature, such as the countertop. Food must be kept at a safe temperature during thawing. There are 3 safe ways to defrost food. So the first one is in the refrigerator. So if you know, like before the day before, you know, if you make a meal plan, taking out your meat from the freezer and thawing it out in your refrigerator, or in a cold water, or in the microwave. So food thawed in cold water or in the microwave should be cooked immediately. Controlling time and temperature. So making sure our thermometer is ready to use, it must be clean and sanitized. Food is safely cooked when the internal temperature is high enough to kill the germs that can make you sick. So use food thermometers to be sure your food is safe. When you think your food is almost done, place the food thermometer in the thickest part of the food, making sure it does not touch any bones, fat, or grill. And you can also refer to the minimum cooking temperatures chart that we'll look over later on in the presentation to be sure to make sure your foods have reached a safe temperature. And take the reading at least in 2 places so you know it's the correct temperature. And then making sure you clean and sanitize after each use or between meats as well. And then how to calibrate a thermometer. So the first step is to fill a large container with crushed ice. Add a little bit of tap water until the container is full, and then stir the mixture well. Put the thermometer stem or probe into the ice water. Make sure the sensing area is submerged. Don't let the probe touch the container. Wait about 30 seconds or until the indicator stops moving. And then adjust your thermometer so it reads 32 degrees. You can do this by holding the calibration nut with a wrench or another tool, and then rotating the thermometer head until it reads 32 degrees Fahrenheit. So cooking temperatures, you do want to make sure these are the correct cooking temperatures for different types of meats. So poultry, you want to make sure it's heated up to 165 degrees Fahrenheit. Ground meat is 255. Fish, pork, and beef are all 145 degrees Fahrenheit. So when we're microwaving food, we want to also make sure we microwave thoroughly to at least 165 degrees Fahrenheit. When we're using pre-packaged frozen meals or anything like that, we want to make sure we read the package directions for cooking and follow them exactly to make sure our food is cooked thoroughly. So if the food label says, let it stand for 2-3 minutes after cooking, follow the directions. So that basically makes sure we're letting the microwave foods sit for a few minutes, which allows the food to cook thoroughly as colder areas absorb heat from the hotter areas. And if it states the start of food in the middle of heating, then follow it. Following package directions for commercially prepared frozen food is very important. Some are not designated to be stirred while heating. So definitely reading that before we put our lunch or frozen dinner or anything like that into the microwave. So the danger zone. So the danger zone is if you're cooking food you want to make sure your food does not stay between 40 and 140 degrees Fahrenheit. So if you're not serving the food right away after cooking, keep it out of this temperature danger zone, because this is where germs grow rapidly by using. So we want to make sure we use a heat source, like a chafing dish, warming tray, or even a slow cooker. So bacteria can multiply rapidly if left in the danger zone. So, and another thing is we don't want to overload our refrigerators or freezers. And we want to return prepped foods into the refrigerator as quickly as possible. And try to plan ahead to avoid opening the refrigerator doors as frequent as possible. So refrigerated foods quickly become cold. And because of the cold temperatures, it slows down the growth of the harmful bacteria. So do not overstuff our refrigerators. Cold air must circulate to help keep food safe. Keeping constant refrigerator temperatures at 40 degrees or below in your freezer at 0 degrees is one of the most effective ways to reduce risk of foodborne illness. So you first want to cool down food from 135 to 70 degrees within the first 2 hours, and then from 41 degrees to lower in the next 4 hours. So when we're making big batches for gatherings or chili or anything like that, you want to divide the warm food into several clean, shallow containers so they will chill faster. And you want to refrigerate perishable food within 2 hours. If the food is exposed to temperatures above 90 degrees Fahrenheit, like if we're going out in the car, or if we're going to a picnic or anything like that, we want to make sure we refrigerate those types of foods within 1 hour instead of the 2. So dangerous food safety mistakes that we could be making. So the first one is the most common is washing our meats, which would include chicken or turkey as well. So washing raw meat, chicken and turkey, and eggs can spread germs onto our sink, countertops, and other surfaces in our kitchen. So those germs can get on other ready-to-eat foods like salad or fruit, that can make us sick. So we don't want to wash our meats before we cook them. So cooking them thoroughly will kill its harmful bacteria. And then eating raw batter dough, which includes like cooking dough and other foods that include undercooked eggs, uncooked eggs, or uncooked flour. Because uncooked flour and eggs may contain E. coli, salmonella, and other harmful bacteria. So we want to make sure we cook or bake flours and eggs thoroughly. So try not to eat foods that contain raw eggs, such as sunny sides up, homemade mayonnaise, hollandaise sauce, eggnog, things like that. Or try to be very extra mindful and careful. And thawing or marinating food on the countertop. It could be harmful because harmful germs can multiply very quickly at room temperature. So we want to make sure we thaw out food safely. And you can thaw it in the refrigerator and marinate it in the refrigerator as well. And then so it doesn't matter what kind of marinade you're using. Peeling fruits and vegetables without washing them. So fruits and vegetables may have germs on them in their peel, and it's easy to transfer those germs inside the fruit or vegetable when we're cutting or peeling them. So we want to make sure we wash all fruits and vegetables under running warm water and make sure we clean them using a vegetable brush, especially on the firm fruits and vegetables like melons, avocados, and cucumbers. Washing fruits and vegetables with soap, detergent, or chemical products is not recommended. Do not use bleach solution or any disinfectant on fruits and vegetables. Putting cooked meat back on the same plate that held the raw meat. So germs from raw meat can spread onto the cooked meat. So always use separate plates for raw meat and cooked meat. And the same rule applies to anything like chicken, turkey, seafood, or any other things like that that is raw and cooked. And then tasting and smelling food to see if it's good. So you can't taste, smell, or see the germs that cause food poisoning. Tasting even only a little bit can make you very sick. So checking the storage time logs to see how long you can store food safely. So when the time is up, definitely make sure to throw it out. And then leaving food out too long before putting in the refrigerator. Harmful germs can grow in perishable foods, including meat, chicken, turkey, seafood, eggs, cut fruit, cooked rice, and leftovers, if you leave them out for longer than 2 hours or longer. So making sure we put perishable foods in the refrigerator within at least 2 hours, or within 1 hour if the food has been sitting out in temperatures over 90 degrees. So some of the most common foodborne illnesses are, the first one is norovirus. So you can get symptoms between 12 to 24 hours and could last up to 60 hours. Some symptoms are nausea, vomiting, abdominal cramping, fever, headache. So diarrhea is the most prevalent in adults and vomiting more so in children. So you could get this from raw produce, contaminated drinking water, undercooked foods, and cooked foods that are not reheated after contact with an infected food handler. So shellfish in contaminated waters as well. Salmonella, you can get symptoms between 6 to 48 hours and could last 4 to 7 days. The symptoms are diarrhea, fever, abdominal cramp, and vomiting. And foods that could cause salmonella are eggs, poultry, meat, unpasteurized milk, juices, cheeses, and contaminated raw fruits and vegetables. Colostrum pharyngeus, the onset is 8 to 16 hours and could last up to 24 hours. This is the most intense abdominal cramps. And foods that could cause it is meats, poultry, gravy, dried or pre-cooked foods, and time temperature abuse. And the last one is Staphylococcus aureus, which you could get symptoms between 1 and 6 hours and could last up to 48 hours. So this is the sudden onset of nausea and vomiting, abdominal cramps. And this could be caused by unrefrigerated or improperly refrigerated meats, potato and egg salads, and cream pastries. So this is like a food storage log. So I can also drop it in the chat as well once the presentation is over, but this will basically tell you, and you can also go on foodsafety.gov, which will tell you like all the different categories. This is just a snippet, but it has a lot more categories. So according to the FDA food code, all perishable foods that are open or prepared should be thrown out after 7 days maximum. No leftovers should survive in your fridge for longer than that. Some foods should be even thrown away before the 7-day mark. So refer to the expiration dates and the food safety guidelines to know how you can handle these specific foods. If you want your leftovers to last longer, freeze them. Just be sure to keep track of how long you've had it in the fridge before you put it in the freezer. Freezing stops bacteria growth in its tracks. So when you thaw your food out, however the light turns green, the bacteria growth continues from where it left off. So according to the chart, if a steak was left in the fridge for 3 days before it was frozen, then it will only be good for 1 or 2 days after it was thawed. So even when you're refrigerating leftovers, maybe write a quick number of days on how long it's been in the refrigerators on the label or anything like that, or a date, just so you remember. Or a good rule of thumb is once you thaw it out, use it up within that day or the next day or something like that to make it easier. And then these are my references. Any questions? You can unmute yourself or put it on the chat. If you don't have any questions, you can kind of scan this QR code or use this link to fill out the post survey and to get your points for today's presentation. And I have also put the link into the chat box as well. And I'll put those resources as well. Thank you everyone for joining the call.